Facebook's game. It doesn't tell me I'm live yet, but I know we are actually live, and it'll tell us in a second. So we're going to roll with that. I'm going to pull this up in the group so we can start our conversation. And I'm looking forward to diving into this with you and talking about how I'm thinking about content right now, and sharing fun updates and talk about things. Let me see if I can see this in the groups. I can see your questions, comments. I'd like to have a conversation around this. So I wanted to have this conversation because, as you may or may not know, if you're on my list, you might know I started a Substack on Monday. So was it Wednesday? It's like two and a half days old. And I also know I talk a lot about picking and sticking, and I don't tend to bring on, I'd like to talk about keeping things simple and doing less better. I don't bring on a lot of new stuff in my business. And so I think this can bring up a lot of questions. I know for my clients, I've had quite a few clients reach out and they're like, okay, I feel like there's something you're not telling us. And so I wanted to have a conversation here because I know whenever we see someone who has any kind of level of success or is a thought leader in the space, I think it can feel like maybe there's a secret we're missing, or they know something that we don't know, and we kind of want to, nothing else. If you're like me, we're just curious and we want to know what's going on. I know especially too with just kind of the Jenna Kutcher stopping her podcast thing and Amy Porterfield stopping her course, I think that has kicked up so many questions for people as well. So I wanted to just hop on and have a conversation. Love the blouse, reminds me of your, yes, you would laugh at this. I also have my nails red for Valentine's Day, and I usually have very neutral nails. So I feel very like, I don't know, like Miami's woman or something, because this is much more pattern and color than I usually wear. But yes, I'm totally matching Nala. Maybe she'll come join us. For those of you listening in the vault, I'm wearing a like leopard print blouse, and I usually wear like plain colors. Okay, so back to our conversation. I also just know right now, I think with what I've been talking with clients about is, or what I've just noticed, I used to say for my clients, especially as they were scaling, the number one thing we talked about was mindset and team. And I think that's still very important. But what I've noticed over, I'd say the last maybe 2 years since things have really shifted online, the main things I'm supporting clients with at every level is mindset and marketing, specifically around content. I think we've talked about this so many different ways, but it just feels so important to say things really have changed online. And I think what it takes to have our content work for us is just different. It just requires more of us. And I think it feels harder or confused. If nothing else, it feels, I think, more confusing for people. And so then I know when we see someone make a change, it can also make us feel confused. Like, wait, did I miss the memo? Does someone have a secret? What's going on? So, you said you love it. I think you mean the blouse. Thank you. Maybe we'll bring out more color. So I wanted to have a conversation around that. I just wanted to be as transparent as possible, walk you through my thought process around this. I wanted to what I thought would be helpful to walk through is my personal goal with content, so you can understand where this is coming from. Obviously, what changes this means, the type of content I'm focused on and how I'm thinking about this. I'm going to talk a little bit about when to pick and stick and when it might be time to make a change, and then how I'm thinking about content overall, especially with multiple platforms. I think this might be helpful for those of you who are in more than one place, and overall with content, just some of the ways I'm thinking about that. And then if we have time, I'll just share a little bit, just some real talks about how I feel about being a newbie on a new platform, and really my expectations and timeline around that, because I think that's actually an important conversation for us just in terms of doing anything in business. I want this to be valuable for you. I know the things I'm doing here. So if you have questions now or in the replay, please put them for me in the comments so that I can answer those, talk through this. And also if you have reflections, things you're seeing, noticing, please feel free to share that. I guess I should share first. So I am on Substack. It's my name, @KimRGitzinger. And the Substack itself, I don't actually know the lingo. It's called Business Inside Out, because I want to show you the inside out of business. I also think success is an inside out job. So we're kind of going with that double there. And that is going to be more industry commentary. So like behind the scenes, what I'm really seeing in terms of industry commentary, but also just real talk with what I'm seeing, work and not work with client conversations. I would love to have you over there. Please come join me. Right now, I'm not doing paid. I don't plan on doing something paid. Who knows, I might in the future. So it is completely free. And it's a place for me to get to share more of that type of content with you in a little bit more of long form writing, which is something for those of you who know me, I like to write long, and I have worked really hard on being concise on Instagram. And this is a nice place for me to get to flex a little bit more of my love for long writing, but also to share content in a different way with you. What that means for the group, I should share that as well. This group isn't going anywhere. We are still here. Please keep hanging out here. Please keep sharing your content. The only thing that's going to shift, because I want to make sure I walk my talk. I always talk about doing less better. And I want to make sure I can give you valuable content. And I'm not just showing up to, like, I don't know, word vomit at you. I always want to make sure I'm very intentional with what I share for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop our lives to once per month, and I will make it more, there are already many masterclasses, but I'll just make them a little bit more teaching focused, unless we have one of my, they're all masterclasses, but like real masterclasses. So we'll make sure we are still having those. I think with people's bandwidth, that might also just be a little easier to show up for. And then I can just go a little bit more in depth on the teachings with you. So we're still going to keep those. That'll still be on the vault. And then the other fun thing is we had the podcast. I launched that for a second season. We were going to have 12 episodes. I'm going to keep the podcast for y'all. I've had so much feedback from all of you, how much you enjoy the podcast. One question, if you guys don't know, I have a podcast. So we will keep the podcast, and then we'll keep Substack, and we'll still keep this here. We're just going to make them a little bit more intentional monthly trainings, because I think what I'm noticing from all of you and just hearing from all of you, I think that's what you're preferring a little bit more. So this group isn't going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. We're just kind of mixing those things, or just changing that a little bit, if that's helpful to hear. So let's talk about how I'm thinking about things and part of the decision around this. I guess this is the first thing I see today. I don't think that everybody now needs to rush to Substack. So this is not a conversation about, like, Substack is the place to go. If it's helpful to hear, just because I know people want to know, like, my process there. I also don't think, like, Facebook groups are dead or anything like that. I do think the way in which we're consuming content is changing. I think I just know my own behavior. Like, that's why I think giving you a once a month, a little bit more in-depth training, I think we're available for that. But I think we just all are trying to just consume a little more intentionally, I think would be the way I want to say it. Not even less, I think just more intentionally. And I think our bandwidths are a little bit lower. And so I am really thinking about how can I still show up and deliver value for my audience, for all of you, and do it in a way that is matching the way we're wanting to consume most, and delivering that in a way that is matching kind of the bandwidth and what we all have. And so with Substack, I don't, it's interesting. Like, I'm brand new there. I'm not like a Substack expert. It'll be really interesting to see. But one of the reasons I'm really interested in that platform, it's not new, brand new, but it's newer. So I think there's still just interesting in terms of room to grow there. If you follow Gary Vee, he's quite big on predictions. Like he predicted, TikTok being a really great place to be. He's pretty, is it bullish? Is that the right word? He's pretty bullish on Substack. So I think from that standpoint, it's just interesting to me as something to explore. I'm personally really interested. My goal for this year in terms of content is, and I'll share like why this might not be your goal, but I'm really interested in finding ways not just to match your consumption, like how you want to consume, but I really want to find ways to bring more depth to the relationships I'm building, to the value I'm delivering, and giving you more of a chance to, as close as possible without getting on a call with me, understand what my coaching style is like, and to build that trust, because I know trust is so down. My screen keeps doing a funky thing, y'all. I think you can still see me. I just went black on me, but I think I'm still there. Okay, I can see myself saying that, so weird. Anyway, let me not lose my train of thought. But my goal is really depth of relationship and content. In terms of over maybe reach, I'm really looking at nurture, depth, and I'm really thinking long term. I'm in a place where my business is fully booked. I mean, we have a spot open up from time to time. We usually have coaching intensives, but I'm not in a place where I'm like massively trying to grow my reach or bring in new people. We're running ads now, so I have a way to bring in traffic. And so my big goal, I am thinking a little bit more long term, is I want to build those relationships, and I really want to be focused on how do I speak. Even I've always focused on this, but like even more to like my right fit people for when those few spots open up, and kind of help people to know who I am and who I'm not for. And I also want, with the trust recession, for people to have a better understanding of what it's like to work with me in the best way possible that you can demonstrate in content. So that's been my thought process this whole year, and that's really my goal. It's why on Instagram, for those of you who are curious, I started doing some talking head reels. I by no means think a talking head reel is like the most viral piece of, not that it can't go content, the most viral piece of content, but I do think it is a way to bring a little bit more depth, to show a little bit more of my thought process, who I am as a coach. And I think in terms of speaking to my right fit people, I think it does that really, really well. So that's kind of like where my mindset is at. And so obviously we do that on the live stream here, but I think there's something really interesting if we're all being mindful of being maybe like where we're consuming. I'm really interested in, I think there's something about reading something long form that, in terms of, I think about like who's the right fit client for me, not that they need to like want to read long form content, but I think it generally is somebody who wants to go a little bit more in depth and who wants to like be mindful of what they're consuming and who like is saving their consumption time for something where it's like, this feels really right and tailored for me. And again, this is a hypothesis. I just have this suspicion that Substack really is curating their platform to be a little bit more around having those types of conversations and a place where we want to go to consume in that way that I think it might not be a huge audience thing, but I think it'll really help me to connect with my people. Obviously, y'all are here as well. I think the other thing I was sharing this with a client, like just in full transparency, like two things here. Every year I like to pick one new goal or one new thing, like skill set to master, one new thing to add to my business. Not more than that, but like 1 year I added this Facebook group, 1 year I added learning reels, 1 year I added the podcast, 1 year I added learning and mastering, I said reels already, 1 year I added ads, right? And so this is for me as well. Like I just love long form writing. And I think especially with AI and how much people are outsourcing their skill set, to me, this feels like an opportunity to, I guess create a differentiation. In terms of, I write my own content. I don't outsource that to AI, even though we use AI in different ways. And I think we're just going to see a bigger and bigger divide online in terms of AI generated content and not. And who knows, AI might get so great in the future that we can't tell the difference. Speaking of Gary Vee, that's something he thinks. So maybe that's the case. Right now, I can spot AI written content from a mile away, and it's not that I'm mad at someone. It's not that I'm like, oh, I can call you out. It just makes me not hear them. Like I see it and I just think, oh, this is AI. It's not them. And so I just can't hear anything they're saying because it's not them, right? Like I just hear the cadence. It feels like nails on a chalkboard to me. But the other thing it does is it makes me think, well, whatever they're telling me, if this lands and resonates, why in the F would I hire them when I can just go to AI directly and it will give me a more personalized, specific response than their like third party way of like telling this to me. And so I do think AI will change. I'm sure I might eat my words in 6 months or a year. We might all just be using AI. Who the F knows? Right now, currently, I think it is very, 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 very clear. Like you can really tell the difference. And so I think it's an opportunity to lean into the differentiation of, here is my voice, here is my work, here is my writing, and to also sharpen I already like to write, but to sharpen my tool there, my axe, my saw, however you want to call it. The other thing, we had a live stream around this, just in terms of how, if this is like helpful to hear my thought process. And then I'll talk a little bit more about how I'm thinking about content on platforms. But not to freak anybody out, but there is enough research out there when we are over relying on AI, what it does to our ability to critically think, to problem solve, to come up with new ideas. I think if nothing else, it's what happens. They've done studies on this. When you're in a group setting, let's say you're in a mastermind. This is why masterminds can have their value, but something to be very aware of is when you're in a group setting, whoever speaks first sets the tone for what everybody else will say. If I'm in a mastermind, what I do when there's a question before anybody talks, I write down my thought, because as soon as you hear someone else's thought, your brain can't help but go to that, right? Reticular activating system for all my manifesting people, and filter for that. And so we start to filter our response through what we've just heard, right? And so it really limits our ability to brainstorm our field of vision based around what somebody else says. We might have had a completely different idea, but as soon as someone else says something, it's not even that we're like trying to be mimickers or copiers, it's just how our brain works. We are suddenly filtering through that. And so it's why we want to be mindful when we're in group settings or outsourcing information in that way, because as soon as one person says something, everybody else is going to generally filter around that, unless they're really hyper aware of that and like, or writing something down like me, and you will get feedback based on the first person who spoke more than anything, even if it's through the lens of everybody else. Hopefully that makes sense. Same thing as if you have a template, right? If you have anything like that, your ideas, everything will be filtered through that template. If someone gives you a suggestion, right, it's filtered through that. So when we have something like AI, even if you're not using it to write, even if you're using it as a brainstorming partner, as soon as AI gives you an idea, even if you don't like it, right, it's almost like you can't not see that, and it puts into your brain the filter for which to screen through. And it limits our field of vision, our ability to creatively think, our ability to hear our own voice and our own cadence, tonality, our own ideas. Right? It's just filtered through that. It's just how our brains work. There's also just a ton of studies on like actually what it's doing to our brains. So all of this said, this is a little bit more information that you all need. I'm just very aware of this, and my biggest asset in my business is my brain. My biggest asset to my clients is my ability to be clear-headed, to have ideas, to be able to see something, to like generate thoughts, to it's not necessarily writing, but it is being able to generate those things. If I lose that because I have outsourced so much of that, I'm in trouble. And if I lose that because I'm not like sharpening that saw, I'm in trouble. But I also think it's an opportunity to differentiate. So I don't think that has to be on Substack at all, but I think there's so many other reasons there. For me, as a part of my goal, I'm really wanting to sharpen my thought leadership, the way I'm thinking, my way of processing things, my way of articulating things, and having ways to put that in place. And long form writing is one way to do that. So very long-winded way of saying like that's really why I'm so interested in that. It's not because I think Substack is like the next hot platform or everybody needs to hop on that. And I feel like that's very important to say, because I know a couple of my clients are like, Kim, if you're doing this, I feel like there's something I'm missing. Like, do I need to do this as well? No, but you might want to think about how are you giving yourself space and time to articulate your own thoughts, to be a thought leader, to get clear on what you think, to ideate, to do the hard, like that is hard work, right? Like it is, I'm a glutton for punishment. I mean, I actually like things that are a challenge, but I think it is the reason we like AI and to brainstorm with it is that is just so much easier. Our brains do not like to have to think, because it uses more calories, right? Our brains are wired for survival, not for success. And so that is a survival mechanism, but it then weakens, right? It's like why we don't want to work out, but then our muscles weaken. And so it actually is more challenging and taxing to have to sit there and to think and to write and to put this into place. But I think for me, like I want to get strong there. So like that's an opportunity for me. Nancy says, that's such a great tip to write it down first. I'm always teaching clients about the reticular activating system. I love that you said that, Nancy. Reticular activating system, I think is just so fascinating. I think we just don't, I mean, just our thoughts anyway, in terms of how our thoughts and repetition allow us to filter, like that's what we see the world through. It's just brains are fascinating to me. But yes, that's my tip in group settings and overall. Is like, can I write down my idea, my thought first, so that I'm not swayed. Because it's just really interesting. Like this is almost like a side conversation, but just the influence of being in groups and groupthink and just also reticular activating system, but just how easy it is for our brains to be swayed, especially if we're not fully trusting ourselves or we're not sure, we're still formulating an idea. So anyway, I digress, but that if it's just helpful to hear, that's kind of my thought process there, my goal with content. And maybe that's just helpful for you to know, like, is that something you want to focus on or not? But just to see, it's not because, not to say that I don't think it's a great platform, but in full transparency, I expect this to take me, I'm giving myself a year of committing to this before I expect to see like massive growth or result. I think generally it takes us 3 to 6 months with any new strategy to start seeing anything. But I think really to master a skill set and to see real traction from something, we have to give it a year. I've just seen that with everything I've done in my business. Not that you can't get results faster. And I say that just to level set expectations for everyone with everything we do. I think our online space makes it seem, not that you can't post something and go viral tomorrow, make a sale and be like an overnight success story. But in general, if that's a fluke, to be able to do that on repeat and to know how to do that and to have a funnel that is working really well. Like usually these things take time to, if we're new at something, right, to learn them, to master them. When I think about reels, my first reels sucked. And it probably took me, not that they didn't serve me and didn't bring in results and they weren't like so horrible, but like I really do think it just took me time to learn them and to really master them and to see those benefits. So especially on a new platform, I started with 0 subscribers. I think we're up to 14 now. Like that is just the reality. So I say that as well. If anybody's like, oh, I need to like jump on this new thing, I'm very clearly aware like this could be slow growth for me, and I'm planning on putting in at least a year before really assessing. Unless I just like find out I hate it, I always give myself permission to change my mind. So that would be the only reason I would stop, or if it just really isn't worth my time, because we do have other platforms. But I think the other thing just to name there, I said I would share this, and so just like real talk, and then I'll talk about how I'm thinking about content on different platforms. But just real talk there. That means I'm a beginner again. And I think there's something very humbling about that. But I think there's something really powerful for us as business owners. So not to say you have to go be a beginner at something, but there is something called expert syndrome. This is a real thing. When we kind of speaking to what we were talking about with the like groupthink, and like when someone says something, we tend to like mimic that in terms of like it limits our field of vision and our way to think. The same thing happens when we're an expert. When we become an expert syndrome, like we tend to stop thinking as creatively. We tend to stop seeing new opportunities. I see this when I play board games. I'm quite good at them. I'm good at strategy, right? My brain is wired for strategy, and so I tend to win. But it's really interesting. I'll play games with my husband. Will play on the same team, and like I tend to be like more the strategy leader. Like he's good at like risk and seeing outside the box, so we make a really good team. And what I find is I can get so like in my expert syndrome that I am just sure this is the thing we should do, that I will not see any other opportunities on the board, which is why it's so helpful to have somebody else there, because he can point something out and it's like I will have resistance against it because it doesn't fit into my like, this is what I've decided, this is what I know what works. But sometimes that is such a better option that will yield bigger results. It's just different. And I think that they've done research on this as well. Whose book is it? I think it's maybe Adam Grant, maybe Daniel Pink. I'll have to think of which book, but they did some really interesting studies around this with experts, to the degree that a lot of companies don't always like to hire experts, and sometimes they want to hire people from different fields to come into a role, because when we are an expert in something, we stop learning new things, we stop seeing new opportunities, we stop having new ideas. So being a beginner at something, or having a beginner's mindset, is actually really powerful for us as business owners, because it helps us to think creatively, to learn something new, right? To see that we don't know everything, to see different opportunities, to not get so locked into this is the one way of doing things. And again, for me, this might not be for everyone, but for me as a business coach, being able to do that, right? Being able to come into something with curiosity and not just, that is what business is. Business is change. Business is evolution. Business is adaptation. Business is not do the one thing over and over again and expect things to never change. Like the one thing in business we can count on is that things are going to continue to evolve, and we have to be able to adapt, which really requires us to be able to tap into that beginner's mindset. So that is just another, it's both humbling. Like I do just think there's something very humbling about that, in the best way possible. And I also think it's such a gift to put ourselves in situations where we are beginners again, even though we're an expert in our field. I think that is just something that only supports all of us as CEOs, and just overall supports our brains, which, maybe sounds geeky, but it's pretty important. Okay. Let's talk about, where do I want to go next? Pick and stick, or the process? I'll really quickly speak to picking and sticking with content, and then I'll talk about, because I think my thought process behind content is pretty easy. Just in terms of, because I know I talk about picking and sticking with a strategy, whether or not you should pick and stick, meaning stay where you're at, keep working what you're doing, or maybe jump to a new platform. In general, the way I think about it is every platform works, every strategy works if you work it. So if you haven't had a chance to stick with something long enough for it to work, your opportunity is almost always to stay with that before adding on something new, because it just takes time, focus, time, and attention to really learn and master something and to start to see those results, kind of like to what I was speaking about earlier in terms of what I'm going to give myself with Substack. So in general, I would say that's the general rule of thumb, and I would do one thing and focus on doing one thing, one platform well, and really mastering that before adding on something new, because as soon as we add something new, it's really tough to do two things well at the same time, and we start to fracture our focus, and instead of bringing one thing up to level 10, we'll have two things that we bring up to like a level 2 or a 3 that don't really do anything for us, with the exception, with the caveat of like, I just hate this platform or this way of performing, like creating content, or this really doesn't play to my strengths, right? If you've been doing live streams, for example, but what you really are excellent at is writing, right? That would be an argument to make a change. Or I have a client who does podcasts. She loves podcasting, but podcasting requires more from her in terms of prepping, finding quiet time with her kids, finding time to record, and then the editing. So for her, it's more a time thing. It's not that we can't get that to work, but it makes sense for us to find a different platform, a different strategy that will work within her, not just her strengths, but her time constraints, her lifestyle constraints to make that work. So I would say those would be the exceptions to the rule. There's always an exception to the rule. Otherwise, as a general rule, I would pick with a strategy, stick with it for a minimum of 3 months. I would say more like in today's world, 6 months, 9 months, a year, and really work on mastering, refining it until it works. And then once it's working, if you need something new, you can always then stack something on top of that. So that's my general kind of way I'm thinking about it. All right, and then let's talk about how I'm thinking about content. I feel like this is probably the main thing people want to hear, and what I'm seeing perform best. And let me know if you have questions. Okay, 2 ways I want to think about this. So I want to talk about what I'm seeing perform best right now, and then I'll talk about, if you are on different platforms, how I'm thinking about that. In terms of what I'm seeing perform best, this might change. This changes all of the time. This is actually what my first Substack is about. What I have noticed, we've talked about the trust recession a ton. We've talked about AI. We've talked about people's bandwidth being down. What I really think we're seeing, given the state of the world, and globally the world is on fire, and then if you live in the US, I think the US has historically been a country where globally we find a lot of trust in. And I think whether you live in the US or not, US politics and the administration has really created a trust breach and has been lying, gaslighting. I don't know if we're full on fascists in fascism or where we're at, but it is alarming. It is alarming for people who live in the US, but I have clients who are in Dubai, I have clients who are in Australia, I have clients who are in the UK. It is alarming for them as well. So I think because of that, it is creating a new kind of trust fracture. And so I think, to what I was speaking earlier, I think not only do we have the trust recession in our industry where people have been burned by programs and coaches weren't showing up and it was all smoke and mirrors and people didn't have qualifications, or people were paying $40K for a group program and like the coach wouldn't even show up on a call, right? That is real. That happened. We've got AI, right? We don't know. I mean, we can tell most of us can tell if it's AI or not. But that's creating a, like, are you who you say you are or not? And now we have this added layer of globally, we're being lied to, we're being gaslit. And so I think what we're seeing is we are just shifting. I think this has already been true, but I think we are just shifting into a new wave of what we want is content that's relevant to us. And we want content that is transparent, that is as much of seeing what is real for, like, someone showing us who they are. We want to know you are who you say you are. And we want to know what's in it for, like, is this going to support me? Because my bandwidth is short. I'm being lied to. Like, things are heavy. And I just need to know, like, is this relevant? Is this going to help me or not? And are you who you say you are? Like, are you transparent? Are you walking your talk? And so I think overall, keeping that in mind, I know for me, I've just seen this in terms of my content and again, this has been true. I just think we're seeing a whole another layer of this. I can see the difference in my content when I have content that is still good content, but it's just a little bit more, we keep using the term like talking with and talking at, but it's a little bit more like, let me just share something that is just helpful to know. It performs okay. When I share something that is, this is the podcast episode I had this week, so you can go listen to the podcast this week, where I was talking about like, what am I actually doing in my business? What am I actually seeing from my clients? What am I actually thinking? When I share something that is a little bit more, not just transparent, because I think transparent obviously, and showing how we're walking our talk is important, but I think there's also this element of how can I show you what's really going on for myself and for my clients and walk you through that. I am just seeing it is massively different in terms of how that performs, and I think it makes sense with what we were just talking about. The other thing I think people are craving, and I think I said this in the article, none of us owe anybody anything outside of our paying clients, obviously. So this isn't about like, now you need to go like share all your deepest, darkest secrets online. And I do think from a consumer standpoint, if we're thinking of working with someone, what we want more than anything is to know someone on the other side is real, and we want to know who they are, what they stand for, and that they're walking their talk. And we can say I'm walking my talk, but the more we can actually show and demonstrate by taking someone behind the scenes. I've had multiple clients in launches where I've said, look, like, this is the issue. So yes, let's share all the testimonials, but also how can we create some safety by giving them a look behind like giving them a module for free, or recording the back end of the course so they can see what they actually get, or recording one of the group calls and putting that out on your podcast. Like what are the ways that we can help someone to actually see behind the scenes in the curtain, to give them as close, like not to see that you're walking your talk, but to have some of that transparency. I think that is just what's performing best, and that's what people are really craving. Curious to hear what you all think and what you're consuming, if that lands for you or not. But that's what I'm really noticing, and I'm also seeing, not just for myself but through clients, whether it's a launch for a group program or with one-on-one. I've had multiple one-on-one clients where, like, if we can, like, let's record a coaching session and put that out there for people. I think it is just really, really, really important right now. In terms of showing up on different platforms, I don't think there's a right way to do this. The way I'm thinking about this, knowing that we are all being very mindful and selective with where we give our time and energy to when we consume content. And the way I think about it is, we all have so many F's to give. We're going to be really mindful and like conservative with like where we give those F's, right? So that includes with the content we consume. I think a lot of us want to protect our brain in that way too, and our bandwidth, our nervous system, all of that. Knowing that, I am trying my best, like the way I'm thinking about this and coaching clients around this is twofold with different platforms. One, I want people to know what they're going to get from each platform and why it's worth showing up on each platform. I think, look, could I just go live, get a transcript, put that on Substack? Sure. Do I think that there's a benefit to that? Maybe, if I am able to grow a really big audience, and I think my audiences are so different. For most of us, our audiences are crossover. And so I think what's most supportive is actually having different types of content on each platform. And so people know where to tune in to get something different. And there's a reason for them to tune in, right? Like, there needs to be a reason for you to be in this group. Otherwise, why would you hang out in a Facebook group? There needs to be a reason for you to watch my Instagram stories. Otherwise, like, why are you going to watch my Instagram stories, right? Like, there needs to be a reason for each of those. And then with that, what I find helpful and what I think can be really supportive for your audience is then giving an angle that is specific and different from each of those. So I'll use myself as an example. I walked you through this at the beginning of this live stream. My screen keeps going dark. I really hope that I'm not. Hey, Stephanie, nice to see you. Let me know if you all have questions. Oh, Nancy says it's helpful to see the person's values and if they are authentic. She was referencing what we were talking just in terms of the content trends. I think you all can still see me. I don't know why. Facebook and Facebook, I still love you because I still want to go live, but so weird. Using it just keeps going, the screen keeps going black on my side. But let's pick up where I was talking about. Using myself as an example here, whether you're on one platform, two platforms, again, I think just having that specific angle is really helpful. So the way I'm thinking about this is, here inside the Facebook group, when I go live, that's a mini masterclass, right? This is where I want to share more of my educational content, more of the content that is, yes, a mini masterclass, a little bit more educational, like we're doing today, or like I do on my masterclasses. When I'm on my email list, right, that's a platform too, right? Like, that's a little bit more like, I want to have a personal note. Like, this is a personal note you can't get anywhere else. It's kind of like what's going on with me, what I'm thinking about. That's the only place you can get that. When I'm on Instagram is a little bit more like, that's where I showcase my personality. That's where I showcase like little quick thoughts, like my hot takes, but also just like behind the scenes of like what's going on with clients and my bite-sized biz lessons, and like those like more quick, easy to digest, and a lot more of like, here's my personality, here's Kim, here are my values. That's on Instagram. So Substack, my podcast, right, that is more where I want to showcase my coaching. And so while I'm not having a coaching session with you, right, we have one question, right? I walk you through. That is much more congruent with what it's like to be on a coaching session with me. I have many of my clients are like, oh, it feels like a mini coaching session, because it's a conversation that's a little bit more like coaching, where we explore a coaching topic, we explore a question, how to think about it, how to like self-coach yourself through that, right? So that is more where I'm demonstrating my coaching. And then Substack, that is where I want to have my industry commentary. So that's more my thought leadership. That's more what I'm noticing in the industry. That's more what I'm noticing through my clients, but from a industry commentary, thought leadership lens. So yes, I could put these all in one place, but since I'm on multiple platforms in different formats, I find it helpful to have different angles for each of those and to have them be quite specific, at least at the start. I think, if we use a podcast for an example, I think you can do anything you want in a podcast, but I think a lot of podcasts do start out with a very specific angle, and then they can always go broad as they grow. But I think that's very helpful, so people know, here's why I'm tuning into this show. Here's what I can expect, right? When we know why we're tuning into something, when we know what to expect, we know where to go for something, but that creates a lot of safety for us, right? If I see 30 minutes, 40 minutes, I got to listen to something, but I don't know what I'm going to get, right? That doesn't feel very safe. And that also just feels like, I don't know if I want to give my time here. If I know, I always know I can expect to have like a little mini coaching session, and I'm going to get like some self-coaching questions from this and how to think about this that I can apply to my business, right? You can then discern, do you want to spend time there or not? So I think it's also very helpful for our audience, not just to be able to come follow you in different places, but to understand if this is content they want to consume or not. So again, I think there's multiple ways to think about things. I'm by no means, I'm not a one size fits all strategy person. I'm by no means saying like, this is the way you have to think about it. But I do find it helpful if you have different things going on for how to organize your thoughts, but also for how to showcase different parts of your business and how to help people understand why to follow you one place versus another, versus outside of just the format itself, obviously. Right? Some of us just like a podcast. Some of us just like a live stream. Some of us just like to read long form. Some of us just like reels or stories or whatever, or just like emails. So, there's that part of it as well. But that's how I'm thinking about that, if that's helpful to hear. Brian says, amazing. I'm so glad that landed. Let me know if you have any questions about that, but that's big picture. So like macro, that's how I'm thinking about with the different angles. And then micro within that, I'm thinking about how can I, to the best of my ability, take people behind the scenes, let people see what I'm actually noticing, right, that you can't get on AI, what I'm actually seeing through my own business, like what actually worked for me. I think the question on the podcast this week was like, what did I actually do to get this result? What did I actually do? What did a client actually do? What is my actual learning? What is my client's actual learning? And then I can put it through these different filters on these different platforms, right? What I'm sharing with you here, this is not something that AI told me to do. This is my actual learning as I'm going through this process so that I can share it with you. And I think in that way, we're able to create content that is more taking someone behind the scenes, creating a little bit more of that, like we are who we say we are, a little bit more of that authenticity, that walking our talk element, without feeling, because I think authenticity is one of those really funky words. We're like, what is that? Like, aren't we all real? I think if we're like, just be more authentic in content, that is so confusing for most of us. I feel like it's such a buzzword that has almost lost its meaning. And I don't even know, you've all probably heard me, like my beef on this. I don't even know if it's the most valuable, because what does it even mean? Like, who am I authentically? Kim authentically is very different when I'm at the gym or when I'm with my husband than when I'm in business, right? Like I think we can almost get lost in the sauce there of like what part of us to bring, as opposed to, I think when we come back to, what did I actually do to get this result? And a result can be a positive or negative, right? I don't believe in failures, but failure in air quotes or success. What did my client actually do to get this outcome? What is my actual learning? What are the things I'm actually doing? I think that is authentic, but it gets us out of like, what part of us do I show? Or like, how do I show my personality? I think it just makes it a lot easier. And I think that's what our people are really craving from us. All right, y'all. I don't see any questions, so I will wrap this up. But again, I will still be here once a month. We'll have a mini masterclass, and I will make sure that we dive into a topic a little bit deeper. All of our past mini masterclasses are inside the Vault, my private podcast, so you can still get those. The Facebook group will still be here. I'll still be here posting content pretty much every day and engaging with you all. So like, please continue to lean in, share your content. I hope there's so many people in here, and I know so many people get clients from this group. Like, this group is not going anywhere. I'm not planning on doing anything with that. Please come find me on Substack. I hope you will find those pieces in the industry commentary valuable and just a different way to think about business. I would love, love, love to have you over there. Again, I'm keeping that free, so would love to have you there. Come listen to me on the podcast, right? We've got lots of places, so I'm not going anywhere. I do want to be, though, very intentional with my time and make sure I'm always giving you my best and quality. So again, we'll be here once a month, and we'll be in Substack weekly. All right, I love you all. Thank you. Oh, I should say, I'm like the worst at modeling sales sometimes, y'all, only because we don't have a lot of availability in my business. but I should model this for you. If you're interested in getting coaching support, whether it's around getting clear on the right platform for you, the right content strategy, getting clear on your messaging and positioning, getting clear on what to put in your content, understanding how to build out a really clear funnel so you're not just posting content into the void and getting nothing in return, but you know how to get traffic, you know how to bring leads into it, you have a funnel on the back end, you know how to get conversions and sales off the back end. That is one of the things I support clients with. I am excellent at it. I have helped, I don't know, I've been doing this for 10 years. So many clients turn their businesses, either build them from the ground up to six and seven figures, or take really great businesses and scale them exponentially. And this is a big part of the work I do. I would love to support you. I am opening up a week-long strategy intensive, and I believe I just ran a masterclass, so I have one spot open. We do have some calls booked, so I pick based on best fit, not just who's booked calls, but I think there will be a 6-month spot open, but there's definitely some intensives available in the upcoming months. So I will drop a link for a free coaching consultation. I do require those at this point because, not from like a bratty way, I'm so picky with who I work with, but I just have limited availability, and I just overall think I can do the best work if we are the best fit. And I think it is a disservice for me to take on clients who I don't feel like I can best support and serve. So I am quite choosy with who I work with in the way of like, I want the best for you. So if you're at all curious about working with me, I invite you to book a free coaching consultation, because I think fit goes both ways. I want you to see if I'm the right fit for you and vice versa. And if we're not a fit for any reason, I promise I will be so transparent, the first person to tell you. I just had a conversation with someone around this, and I sent them 3 referrals for people who I thought would be a better match for what they specifically needed. So, obviously don't book a call for like, I just want a free audit of my business or something like that. But if you're sincerely interested in working with you, I just also find that people walk away. I've had people tell me they would have paid $1,000 for these calls just from the clarity you get through having a chance to look over your business and what it really needs and what the next best step is to focus on. So if that is you, I will drop a link for a free coaching consultation. I don't charge for these right now, but I do require them at this point to work together. And I would love to connect with you. All right. I did a better job modeling that. Y'all, I love you. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in a couple weeks in the group, but I will see you in Substack next week. I will see you, I can't see you, but I'll hear you, talk to you on the podcast and over on Instagram, and then we'll have a mini masterclass in a couple of weeks here. Thank you so much. Bye.